Hey everybody, just a quick introduction that I recorded after the real introduction. So, as you may know on YouTube, you can't really show clips of movies without getting copyright claimed, and I'm not an expert at this kind of stuff, so I want to avoid any issues. So, for background images, I'm gonna just have some gameplay footage and maybe a few stills or something. In my past reviews, I've just used like a MS Paint image. I might do something like that. I might just throw on some video game footage. I'm just recording this now, having finished up the actual recording of the review segment, and I'm probably just gonna go and play some video games and get like appropriate similarly themed video game footage to play in the background, just so it's not just a static image or a just like a black screen the whole time. Thank you, and get ready for my review of VHS. Thank you. Bye. Hello, everybody. This is my first kind of sort of scripted content I've done in several years. So if it's a little rusty, please excuse that. So today I will be talking about the VHS series and more specifically the first film in the VHS franchise. Now, for those who don't know, VHS is a 2012 found footage horror anthology that would go on to spawn 3 sequel films, 1 spin off movie, and a streaming series. While I cannot speak for the 2016 spin off film Siren or the streaming series, I can say that I consider myself a longtime fan of the 4 main films. My interest in the found footage subgenre began when I was a small child and somehow stumbled across a showing of 1989's The McPherson Tape on television. Now, for those who don't know, The McPherson Tape is a early found footage film that predates the Blair Witch Project, about a family filming a child's birthday party who get visited by aliens. At the time, I was a small child, and I didn't kind of realize that it was a fake movie for a couple days. I mean, I was really small, and I thought that was like actual footage of aliens abducting people. It was pretty terrifying. My impetus to make this review came about as last night, as of when I wrote the script, now a few days after. Um, I was with 2 of my friends, and we watched the 4th film in the series, which is VHS 94, as a group. Now, in that group, one of my friends is like me, a longtime fan of the franchise. The other friend was a new comer to the series, hadn't seen any of them. So when the discussion turned to the previous films in the series, both of my friend and me kind of reached a similar conclusion that VHS Viral in the 3rd film was the one we mostly remembered. The first and second movie, though, we couldn't really recall too much specific details about. I could remember some of the individual segments of the films. However, I couldn't remember like which segment belonged to which film. And so, since I had the day off the following day, I decided to sit down and rewatch the first film and make this review. Now, I will hopefully be getting around to making reviews for the other 3 films in the series, and if those go well enough, I might even do one for the spin off film Siren, depending on how things go. Now, a few things I want to touch on before we begin. Firstly, there will be spoilers. Secondly, since these are anthology films, the way this review will be structured, I'll talk about the each segment as an individual, giving a kind of like a brief synopsis and my opinion on it, and at the end of each. And at the end, I will discuss the film as a whole, sort of talking about how each segment compares. Thirdly, I'll be treating the framing narrative, which plays in between each segments, as if it was one cohesive segment. However, when I refer to the numbering of segments, I won't consider that one of them. That's a little confusing, but basically, I'll talk about the framing narrative first, but if I say, like, first segment, second segment, I'm actually referring to the actual film segments of the movie, not the framing narrative. That's kind of, think of that as almost, if you will, a segment 0. Um, and then the last thing I want to touch on a little bit before we begin, for those who may not know, what a found footage film is, according to Wikipedia, found footage is a cinematic technique in which all or a substantial part of the work is presented as if it were discovered or video recordings. The events on screen are typically seen through the camera of one or more of the characters involved, often accompanied by their real-time off-camera commentary. That's the Wikipedia kind of introduction to it. The most successful and iconic found footage of all time is obviously 1999's The Blair Witch Project. So think of that kind of setup. It's told through a character filming, not a sort of floating imaginary camera person. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get to our first film, simply titled VHS. So the framing narrative for this one is titled Tape 49 and is written and directed by Simon Barrett. This tells the story of a band of ne'er-do-wells, a real group of scumbags led by a man named Gary. Before the actual sort of horror of the story, the supernatural aspects kick off, we're treated to several kind of interspliced shots of the group committing various crimes, recording it for posterity. The most notable one being they ambush a couple in a parking lot. They rip the woman's shirt off, filming her breasts. Back at the hideout, we watch them watch the footage of that assault on the woman. The group's leader, Gary, talks about how they're getting paid $50 by some shady porno company for each video like that they send them in. The group talks about how maybe they should try escalating their violence and maybe they might get more pay out of it. When Gary interjects that he's taken on a job for a mysterious client. The job is essentially they have to break into a house and steal just one VHS from this house. The group's not really sure why they're getting paid so much money to do this. They figure it must be some kind of blackmail scheme. Maybe there's some politician on tape engaging in some kind of sexual indiscretion. They theorize. So they arrive at the house. The house seems abandoned. They do discuss, however, that if there is someone in the house, they're more than willing to, escalate the violence if necessary against the individuals. They break into the house, wander around. It's kind of, spooky, dark house at night. They eventually find that upstairs a room containing a dead man sitting in a recliner. It's a dead older man in front of a bunch of TVs, all displaying just sort of static. There's a bunch of VHS players. It's kind of setting up that this is a VHS themed horror film. So the gang split up to look for the mysterious tape. In between each segment of each of the different horror segments of the film, we're treated to kind of like them wandering around the house looking for things. There's a couple of jump scares. Sometimes they'll cut to the room when the guy in the chair will be missing. Sometimes he'll be sitting in the chair. Usually, it's sort of presented that one of the characters will pull up in a VHS tape, presumably trying to see if it's the right one they're looking for, even though they would have no idea what's on it. One by one, the group is whittled down until finally only Gary is left. He comes across one of the other members of the gang decapitated in the hallway. It turns out the mustached old man in the chair isn't actually dead, or maybe he's a zombie or something. I don't know. And he sort of chases after Gary. Gary falls down a flight of stairs, and then, he gets him. It's a Overall, it's a pretty okay segment. The framing narrative segments in these films are never really their strong point, though I feel this is probably one of the stronger ones, especially compared to VHS 4, or 94, I should say, is the actual title of that film. Which, if I get around to making a review of that, trust me, I'll have a lot to say about that one's framing narrative. What I really actually kind of like this framing narrative, it sort of sets up the sort of voyeuristic, almost snuff film-esque aesthetic of the series. Other than though, I don't have too much to say about this segment. It's solid. Now we get to the first real segment of the film, which is titled Amateur Hour, which is, I'll get into, is kind of ironic, and is directed by David Bruckner and co-written by David Bruckner and Nicholas Tasaki? I don't know how you say that. Let me preface this by saying that this is easily the best segment in the film, and it's so good it actually got its own spin-off film, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, titled Siren. So, I won't refer to the actual characters by their names, because the only one I remember is Patrick, so in this, I'll refer to the three group of friends as Glasses, Chad, and Patrick. I call Glasses Glasses because he's wearing a pair of glasses, and in those glasses, there's a hidden camera. You may have seen these before. It's kind of a novelty item, but you can get glasses that have little hidden things in them. Sometimes undercover agents or reporters use them, whatever. Anyways, these group of friends, they're your typical sort of frat bro types. I believe it's mentioned that the reason Glasses is wearing the glasses is because they're hoping to go out and bang some broads, and they're hoping that Glasses will be able to record the action with his glasses. So you get the idea. They're not exactly the best group of people. So they head to town looking for some brewskis, and while they're in the bar, this scene isn't really super important, but I just wanted to point it out because I thought it was weird. The Chad of the group, the sort of leader, he starts hitting on a girl by asking her how many pancakes she can eat. She responds saying she can eat 5 at once, and he brags that he could probably eat 10. Um, I was never in that kind of scene or that community, so I don't know if that's an effective technique. I don't think it would be, but who am I to judge? Meanwhile, Glasses, he's sort of hanging out at the bar, and this very small, very petite woman approaches him. She's got very large, bulging eyes. She's got a very distinct look. She approaches him and tells him, "I like you." Now, immediately, you can tell something's kind of strange about this girl. I can't remember if you can see it in the scene, in that particular scene, but when she talks, you can see that her tongue is black, which is kind of strange. Also, she has what looks like it could be a piece of hair at first. You might think it's just a hair down the middle of her face, but it's kind of looks more like a seam almost, which becomes again more relevant later. Um, but generally, this girl's strange, and when in the scenes where people interact with her, you notice that if someone says a phrase other than "I like you," it seems like she kind of mimics what they're saying, like mouths the words without actually saying it. She's very socially awkward, but our friend Glasses, he just kind of rolls with it. So eventually, the group leave the bar. They go back to the hotel room. It's a two-bed motel room, and so on one bed you have Chad and Pancake Girl, and then on the second bed you have Glasses and Weird Girl, and then on the sort of the couch you have Patrick, the other friend, being a bit of a fifth wheel. So Chad is, making out, shall we say, with Pancake Girl. Pancake Girl passes out from all the alcohol she's consumed. Chad is in the process of undressing her. However, he's having a hard time undressing her because she's got sort of complicated garter belt rig going on, and also he's clearly drunk. Now, in a strangely human action for someone who's otherwise presented as just sort of a awful frat guy type, our trusty pal Patrick tells Chad that he has to stop because, Pancake Girl's clearly unconscious. She can't consent. And, Chad, he gets a little upset about this, and it seems like there might be a confrontation between the two. However, Chad he shrugs it off and then decides to start hitting on our boy Glasses girl, the weird girl. Now, the weird girl, she is DTF. She just, instantly switches affection from Glasses guy to Chad, and things escalate extremely quickly within seconds. She's naked and on top of Chad. And perhaps most surprisingly, she's actually seems like she wants to engage in some, shall we say, multiplayer action with Glasses guy. Glasses guy, he's pretty okay with it at first, but he kind of chickens out and leaves the room. Though it seems like our guy Patrick, he's gonna take Glasses guy's place when Glasses guy opens the door to the bathroom to peek out and sees that there's some shall we say MMF action going on. Now, within a few seconds, however, Patrick runs and bursts into the bathroom, his hand bleeding, saying that he's been bit by the weird girl. And so our Patrick and Glasses guy, they leave the room to go, say like, hey, what's going on? WTF? And what they realize now is that the weird girl, she has strange black spots all over her back, and she reels back, revealing fangs, and she kind of screams in a monstrous voice and starts shredding Chad to pieces. Meanwhile, this whole time, Pancake Girl is still just unconscious on the bed, on the other bed. So they run back into the bathroom in terror. Patrick rips a shower curtain off the wall, and well, shower curtain rod, I should say, not a shower curtain. That wouldn't be a very effective weapon. The two men then leave the bathroom. Patrick rushes at the weird girl with his shower curtain rod, and Glasses Guy tries to revive the sleeping Pancake Girl. Uh, Patrick's heroic assault, however, is in vain, and he is quickly dispatched by the weird girl. Our boy, Glasses, he is obviously terrified, and as he tries to make his way towards the door to escape, failing to revive Pancake Girl, we see that Weird Girl has actually ripped Patrick's genitalia clean off and chucks it towards our boy Glasses. So Glasses, he escapes. He manages to make it down a flight of stairs by falling face first and smashing his arm on the ground. Weird Girl, now much more bestial looking, with a weird slit down her face, almost like her head is coming apart, crawls over to him and says, "I like you," again. And what I think is supposed to be happening is I think it's implied that she's trying to perform, shall we say, mouth stuff with him, but he is unable to, because of the situation, rise to the occasion, shall we say. And she takes this as a personal insult and scampers off into the corner to cry, which gives our boy the chance to flee. As he's running away, he's screaming for help. People are kind of either ignoring him or looking on in terror. He is then lifted into the air, and he notices claws in his side and looks up and sees that the weird girl now has sprouted wings and is carrying him aloft into the sky. Shortly before his glasses fall off his face and tumble to the road below, thus ending our first segment. As I mentioned earlier, this is easily the best segment of the film. It's so good it even inspired its own spin off film. I mean, that should kind of give a little bit of a hint that it's better than the others. Now, it is also, as I mentioned earlier, the title of the segment, Amateur Hour, is pretty funny considering that it's definitely not amateur hour in terms of quality. It's just overall very well done. There's You can tell right off the bat that the girl is weird, but she's not weird enough in a way that you know where it's going. You know something's going to eventually happen with her. You aren't expecting her to be literally ripping people's genitalia off and sprouting wings. It's fantastic. Now, it's also worth noting that David Bruckner, who directed this segment, also directed another really good horror film, 2017's horror film titled The Ritual, about a group of friends who go to Sweden on a hiking trip and find all kinds of creepy pagan monsters in the woods and stuff. It's another fantastic film I strongly recommend. Now, if I did have to offer one criticism for this, I will say it's probably that it's in the Glasses gimmick, because at times it can make this segment a little difficult to watch, just how jerky and yeah, basically in real life, if you're watching a kind of a jerky first-person camera, it can be a little disorientating. That's my only real criticism for this segment. Otherwise, it is absolutely fantastic. The next segment, let me just start off by saying, it sucks! It's titled The Second Honeymoon, and is written and directed by Ty West. Now, looking into this, I looked at Ty West's other credits, and of his other films, I've seen two of them, 2009's Cabin Fever 2 Spring Fever and 2013's The Sacrament. And both of those movies are garbage, so already we're starting off great. Basically, what you need to know with this segment is that, and by the way, let me just also do a little prefacing. I originally didn't even want to describe the plot to this segment. I thought of just leaving it with this, that this segment sucks, but I feel like it would be doing a bit of a disservice. So unfortunately, here we go. This segment concerns a married couple on a trip through the American Southwest. The two are presented as a rather generic couple. They seem to get along okay. There's no implications of, like, typically in these, you would set up some kind of trouble brewing beneath the surface, but they seem like a fairly realistic, otherwise unremarkable couple. So they are going on a trip through the Southwest, visiting various tourist traps and things. It's all very boring until one night in their hotel room, the couple hear a knock on the door. Husband decides to answer the door. We see him point the camera through the doorway into the parking lot. We kind of see a woman, it could be a woman off in the distance, wearing a sweatshirt, hooded sweatshirt. We then cut to the wife filming the husband, and he says that he spoke with the woman. She said that she needed a ride into town in the following morning, and he, said that they couldn't. He says that the woman gave off a kind of a creepy vibe, and that, she was kind of not really intimidating, but she definitely seemed odd. And it is what it is. So then the couple go to sleep. We then cut to footage from a third perspective of some sort of intruder in the room, sort of voyeuristically filming them as they sleep. The camera person, shall we say, films the husband and then moves the camera over to the wife and then sort of pulls the cover down to kind of focus the camera on the wife's butt and pulls out a knife and starts like kind of like rubbing her panties with the knife, and it's creepy. When the wife kind of rolls over in her sleep, the camera intruder then walks over to the discarded pile of clothes on the floor, steals $100 from the husband's wallet, goes into the bathroom and takes one of the toothbrushes on the counter and dips it in the toilet and puts it back. The next morning, we see the wife filming the husband, and it's his toothbrush that was dumped in the toilet. Later on, the husband and wife are in a car. They're going to their next destination when the husband realizes his money is stolen. He accuses the wife of taking the money. She denies it. And we get an implication that this may not be the first time that money has been taken from him without his knowledge, which he attributes to her. Then a couple of scenes, not really much happens. And then the following night, we're then treated to the husband and wife talking about their plans for the next day. They go to sleep for the night. We get another shot of the intruder entering the house, or a hotel room, I should say. And this time, things escalate with the knife in hand going directly into the husband's throat, repeatedly just stabbing him in the throat. We then see the intruder run to the bathroom, throw the knife into the sink with running water. The intruder takes off the mask, revealing it as a young woman. The wife then enters the frame, and the two start kind of lesing out with each other, and then we're treated to the two driving the car the next day, seemingly celebrating. It's stupid. I don't know. I didn't like this segment. I thought the ending was just kind of strange. Like, are we supposed to dislike the husband? Are we supposed to like feel that it was justified of his murder? I mean, he's kind of a dweeb, but the only moment he does anything outright dickish is when he accuses the wife of taking the money, which we find out in retrospect is actually correct if we're to believe that the wife has been in cahoots with this murderous girlfriend the whole time. There's not really much to go on to suspect that the wife is plotting against the husband throughout the segment. The only kind of foreshadowing, I should say, which I kind of left out because I thought it was stupid, was a moment where they go to like one of those like robotic fortune telling machines, and the fortune is extremely vague but briefly implies that someone is being taken advantage of. It's a dumb. I don't like the segment. It's boring, and the ending seems like it's just meant to be shocking, but I don't know. I don't like having things telegraphed heavily, but I feel like there needs to be at least a little bit of a telegraphing. Just that I don't like this segment. Let's talk about the next one. Our third segment is titled Tuesday the 17th and is written directed by Glenn McQuaid, someone whom I'm completely unfamiliar with. As you may have picked up by the title, this one is a little goofy and a little derivative. Four friends are in a car going to a lake so that they can have, smoke weed and have premarital sex. Our group consists of a dweeb, a bimbo, a jock, and a brunette. Stop me if you heard this one before. And I'm just going to throw this out there. Cabin in the Woods, the horror film that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, deconstructs a lot of slasher movie tropes, came out in December 2011. This film came out in January 2012. And I mean, both of those were both beaten by Scream well over a decade, not to mention other various minor parodies. But even by now, like even by this point in 2012, this sort of theme has been run into the ground. The gist of this one I'm also going to barely describe because it's not worth it. The gist of this one is that the brunette girl is the quote unquote final girl from a previous slasher incident in which the killer got away, so she brought her new friends up there to serve as bait so she could lure out the killer who killed her old original friends years ago. The only thing that's kind of unique about this is how they incorporate the video element, is that, like, I guess the killer is sort of like a cross between Slender Man and Jason Voorhees. And I think they say something that, like, you need a camera in order to see him, or that he can, like, teleport and he's on camera. Also, he causes, like, camera distortions and stuff. It's kind of like a Slender Man sort of thing. The segment is kind of just dumb. It's not horrible like the second honeymoon was. It's just not very good. The fourth segment is titled The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Younger, which, by the way, would make a fantastic title for an earlier Senses Fail song, or maybe like Taking Back Sunday or something. This one was directed by Joe Swanberg and written by Simon Barrett. Unlike Glenn McQuaid, who has very few film credits to his name, Joe Swanberg has numerous credits. However, like Glenn McQuaid, I have not seen any of these other films, so I can't speak on them. His typical films are very much outside my wheelhouse. This segment is rather interesting in that the way it's presented is entirely through Skype calls. There's no actual camera work in the traditional sense, it's all presented as sort of fake Skype calls. Now, this one is also a little bizarre, to say the least. It's probably the most bizarre segment in the film. In this one, our story follows Emily, who is a young woman who I believe, based on her background, mentions she grew up on a military base. Her boyfriend lives far away and is studying to be a doctor, so the two communicate via Skype. Emily is now living on her apartment on her own, which she believes to be haunted. Also, she mentions that her arm hurts. Her ever stoic boyfriend tries to calm her down, but things quickly escalate, and I mean very quickly. We go from within like a span of like 2 minutes from strange footstep sounds to doors opening on their own to like little kid ghosts running into the frame and like slamming doors and doing little kid jump scare stuff. Emily quickly escalates from scratching her arm and talking about how it's pain to cutting the skin of her arm and sticking a large metal fork into it. I mean, this one feels extremely short and feels like it could have been fleshed out a little bit more. Emily concocts a plan to walk around her apartment holding the laptop so that her boyfriend, I guess, can, like, talk to the little ghost children. It's a weird plan that I don't get what she was hoping would happen. Anyway, so, like, the ghosts, I guess, knock her out or cause her to fall unconscious. The, camera hits the ground, and the boyfriend enters from the, like, doorway, meaning that he wasn't actually far away. He was just, like, I guess, across the hall the whole time. He then cuts Emily open and pulls out this really fake looking alien fetus thing. I guess the ghosts aren't actually ghost children. I guess they're aliens, and the boyfriend is working with aliens. The thing in her arm is like a tracking device, and I don't know, guys. This one's just weird. The next day, Emily wakes up and she's all in like bandages and casts and stuff, and explains that she was in a car accident and she doesn't remember it because the doctors say she has some kind of schizoaffective personality or something. And they gave her a bunch of pills. However, she's so glad that she has such a great boyfriend who, and he's, he's like, yeah, I know, I'm pretty great. We then cut to the boyfriend then having another Skype call with a different girl with much larger breasts, who flashes them at the camera and says, that she's so glad she has such a great boyfriend, and the implication is that the boyfriend guy, he's doing the same sort of alien fetus farming program, I guess, with a variety of women. I mean, it's not the worst segment in the film. It's definitely the strangest, and it definitely feels the shortest. It could just use from being a little bit longer and more fleshed out, but it's not horrible. I mean, it's just kind of, other than the weird ending, it feels like two different segments, honestly, mashed together, creating an unrewarding whole. The fifth and final segment in our film is titled 10/31/98 and is directed by Radio Silence and co-written by Radio Silence and Justin Martinez. Now, Radio Silence isn't a person so much as three people working under a collective pseudonym. Their only other work that I've seen personally is a film from 2019 called Ready or Not, a film that I actually saw completely on a whim, because the movie I had wanted to see, I thought was in theaters, wasn't actually playing at the time I thought it was, so I was like, well, I'm at the theater, I might as well go see a film, and I just picked one. I had no idea what it was, and actually I quite enjoyed it. This segment, once again, similar to kind of almost like a prevailing theme, concerns a group of dude bros going to a party. In this case, it's a Halloween party. Now, these characters, unlike our first segment, these guys are just complete throwaways. There's no reason to name them or anything. And the only one whose name I do remember is because I thought it was funny. His name is actually Chad, unlike Chad in the other segment, who I just referred to as Chad. This guy actually is Chad. And what I thought was extra funny about him being named Chad is that his Halloween costume was that of Ted Kaczynski. Uncle Ted. Woo! Anyways, our four friends, they get to the house that they're going to have this party at, and it seems like it's abandoned. Eventually, they do find their way into the house, and when some mildly spooky things begin to happen, they come to the kind of strange conclusion that instead of a Halloween party, it's actually like a Halloween haunted house, in that I don't know. I think that's kind of a bizarre conclusion to come to. But anyways, they kind of make their way through the house. There's some mildly spooky things, like looking in a mirror and seeing a ghost girl, and then looking over and she's not there. As they make their way through the house, they go upstairs and they can hear talking coming from the attic, where they assume the actual party is happening. The dude bros, they go up into the attic and find a bunch of men surrounding a bound woman who seems to be writhing in agony. The men are chanting biblical sounding phrases and chanting, "Cast him down." The dude bros watching from the entrance to the attic, they begin to chant alongside jokingly. This causes the exorcists, because this is clearly some kind of exorcism, to lose concentration. They turn to, warn the intruders that they must leave. However, this lapse of concentration is just the opening the devil needs, and soon members of the exorcism squad are being lifted up off the ground and thrown around like toys. The dude bros freak out and they begin to make their exit. However, our protagonist convinces them that they need to go back and rescue the bound woman. They can't just leave her like that. They go up into the attic again to confront the exorcists, who are desperately trying to redeem the situation. However, the paranormal phenomenon come to the aid of our dude bros, and they manage to defeat the exorcists and free the woman. As they make their way through the house, all manner of crazy paranormal phenomenon occur. This part is fantastic. Arms are sprouting from walls, doorknobs are like shooting off of doors like missiles, walls begin to transform, It's fantastic. The special effects are a little dated, but it's still a lot of fun. It's just, a roller coaster ride of spoop. Eventually, they make their way outside. They pile into their car. However, once the car makes it onto a set of train tracks, the car suddenly turns off. The girl that they are rescued has now teleported somehow outside of the car and, sort of stares at them menacingly, revealing, obviously that she was a demon the whole time. The group begin to panic as they can hear a train beginning to swiftly approach. As the train approaches, they begin to try to start the car, pound on the doors and windows to no avail. And finally, the train hits the car, presumably killing our our protagonists. Now, I gotta say, despite the downer ending, it's a lot. That segment is a lot of fun to watch. Now, I have heard that there is an alternate ending where they survive. I don't know if that's like a DVD exclusive thing, but according to the Wikipedia page, at least there is an alternate ending. But yeah, I like that segment. It's a lot of fun, and it's also worth noting that of the 5 segments in this film, the first one is definitely the best, and it's good that they start out on their best foot and end on their second best foot. And what I realized rewatching this film, and that came as a bit of a surprise, is that most of what I remember from the first 2 films is actually from the second film. So that gives me a lot of hope that when I rewatch the second film, that it's going to be an absolute banger, because I remember a lot of great things from the first 2 films that ended up not being in this one. That also kind of leads me to a kind of interesting spot where I actually didn't really like this film that much, truth be told. I mean, the first segment, Amateur Hour, is amazing. It's fantastic. It's easily, it's up there as one of the best segments in any of the 4 films. However, the lows of this are really bad. I mean, Second Honeymoon is easily the worst segment I can remember, at least. I have just rewatched VHS 4 rather recently, and I think overall VHS 4 is probably the worst film in the series. However, none of the segments in that one are individually as bad as Second Honeymoon was. I will hopefully do a full review on 4 eventually, and when I do, hopefully I can just do some kind of overall review of the whole series and maybe do a ranking of each segment, maybe do a tier list or something. But that will be interesting to see how everything ranks up individually. But overall, this one has some pretty high highs and some pretty low lows, which make it hard to recommend to a newbie to the series. Until I have to really rewatch the second one and the third one, but I have a feeling the second one is going to be my favorite. But we'll see when I get around to that review. In conclusion, it's hard to recommend the first VHS film to a newcomer to the series. However, I strongly recommend you watch at least the Amateur Hour segment. It maybe leave the movie on a second monitor or something for the other 3 middle segments, and then come back for 10, 31, 98. That's my conclusion for this one. Like I said, I'll hopefully be making reviews for the other ones. If you made it this far, please like this video and subscribe and leave a comment what your favorite segment was. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that Second Honeymoon was too deep for me and that I just didn't get it because I'm an idiot. And I will see you guys next time. I love every one of you. Be good and be nice, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.